Thanks for joining us on another episode of So What's Next. I'm your host, Jeremy Medor.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen Smith, and we are joined here.
My name is Jim Bennet. I am the owner of NGE Sports Performance in Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
Jim, thank you so much. You're not just our neighbor, but you are also a role model in our community, and I'm really happy that you came into the studio today so we could have this conversation.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's been awesome.
So, you and I have discussed in past interactions what got you involved in what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But for the benefit of our audience,
Sure.
I'd like to rehash that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your story on up to now.
How I got to where I am.
Yeah, like what got you interested first of all?
Well, I was an athlete growing up.
Yep.
College football player. Played football at UMass Lowell. Had a pretty good college football career. Was a captain my senior year. And then went off. I lived out in LA for almost 5 years. Worked in Hollywood. I did some really cool stuff. I worked on movies and commercials, and I was Johnny Depp's bodyguard for the filming of a movie for
Didn't know that.
in Las
Awesome.
Vegas.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I had some cool stuff and had some fun, and then came back and never used my degree. I had a degree in psychology, and was going to teach. And then got into construction, and in college I had hung some gutters and ended up going back and doing that and buying into that company and did gutters for a while, and then some labor work,
Mm-hmm.
and then I ended up getting hurt. Back in 2008, I a construction accident. I hurt my back and had 3 spinal surgeries, a spinal fusion.
Wow.
So rods and screws, and I had some time to contemplate life and what I really want to do, and what's going to make me happy. I wanted to go to work and be happy.
Yep.
And have something fulfilling. So I said I want to go help athletes take their game to the next level. Now at that point I maybe thought it was, hey, I'm going to be taking elite athletes, I'm going to be working with Olympians, but I also had a background working with kids. I started at a summer camp when I was 7 years old, going away to summer camp, and I left when I was 22. Every summer, I was down in Duxbury, Massachusetts. And by the time I was, I think I was 13, we did a leadership and training program, and then became a counselor and a section director and an assistant camp director. And I'm in charge of, at 19 years old, in charge of 70 staff from around the world and 300 kids.
Yeah.
And so and it's funny, my family all going, oh, you're going to work with kids. You're going to work with kids. And that's why when I went to college the first time, I thought I wanted to be a teacher.
Yep.
Let me work with kids. And it never worked out that way.
Was your psych degree specific towards childhood?
So I was going to do elementary special education. Right. Was what I was going to go work with, not necessarily special needs, but kids with behavior and issues. And
Sure.
And and that was the plan. And I did some substitute teaching, and I loved it. And then now I'm graduating college, and I get a chance to go out to LA.
Sure.
And things changed.
Yeah. Who says no to that?
Who says no to that? Right.
Yeah.
So
did you play football throughout college?
I did. I played 4 years football at UMass Lowell.
All right. And what got you to LA? Like, where was
So
the
I have an aunt
connector?
and uncle that live out there that work in the film industry. And 4 years before that, my sister, when she was in college, or right after college, maybe a summer while she was in college, she went out and worked out there. They called it Camp Pete and Rhonda, which is my aunt and uncle out there. So my sister did that, worked on some commercials and as production assistant stuff. And so that was my turn. And I said, let me go out and try this out, and I loved it. And so I had to go back to you. I had to come back after that first summer and finish up. I had one class I had to take, and my aunt and uncle said, you got to go graduate before you can come out here.
Good on them.
Good on them.
Yep.
So I went back and graduated, and then moved out to LA.
Okay.
And I lived in Pasadena, Altadena, and then Thousand Oaks, and then right in Hollywood, because I was working in Hollywood. Movies and commercials and behind the scenes on stuff, and we got in front of the camera on a few different things.
Right.
And loved it, but also I loved the work not necessarily love the people.
Sure.
Out in LA.
You love what you did, not necessarily who you did it with.
Yeah, I loved walking out of my apartment and seeing palm trees.
Yeah.
But I didn't love not knowing who I could trust.
Yeah.
The nicer they were to you, the more you felt like they wanted something from you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And not, really, truly, was there for your benefit.
Yeah.
Found that I gravitated more towards people from the East Coast.
Okay.
Out there. A lot of my friends were from New York and Boston or even Philly, which necessarily isn't East Coast. But
you tried hanging around home, basically.
Yeah. And they got to appreciate Massachusetts and Boston being out there.
Right.
So what brought me back was 9/11. So 9/11 kind of multiple things. So SAG went on strike.
Yeah.
So a lot of the production stuff was not dried up.
Yeah.
That was a little while. And then after that, 9/11 happened. So there was just like hit, and just everyone pulled money of all production. So it was time to come home and regroup and with the plan of going back out there.
Yeah.
And I never made it back out.
Yeah.
And I started back here, and like I said, I different careers and did security and worked at the Ritz-Carlton and a whole bunch of different things, but never really something that this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
But you got laid up. You're just sitting there and you're just recovering, and you're blank slate at that point.
Yeah. It's what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So
how did you piece that all together?
I started doing some research, and I at one point I said I was, maybe be a personal trainer. But I didn't want to just be a personal trainer. I wanted to work with athletes. And, when I was growing up, we didn't really have any facilities like I have where there's speed training and agility training and skills training. There really just wasn't that stuff. We went out and played. We ran through yards and hopped fences and chased each other. And that's how we became better athletes. Yeah. And kids today don't do that. Whether it's the neighborhoods they're in or just too many video games, whatever it is, they're not doing that. They're not running around chasing each other through neighborhoods.
Right.
So they're not exercising through play.
Correct. Not. I mean, some are, but in general, it's gone way down.
It's not dominant.
It's not dominant at all. And back then, that's all we did.
Yeah.
So, so I went back to school. I went back to school, and I did some research and got a degree in exercise science.
Yep.
And had to do an internship.
Okay.
So a good friend of mine, who's actually an old business partner of mine, I said, I'm going to go, I need an internship, and maybe it's the boys club down the street. And he's like, well, I've got a friend that owns a place in Acton. I can ask him if he wants an intern. So he set that up, and I went in for an interview, and shout out to Peter Pappas, who was the owner of Total Athletic Performance in Acton. And part of my interview process, he said, well, what's your 5-year plan? And I looked around, I said, I'm going to own this place.
Oh, okay.
Just like that.
All right.
And he kind of looked at me sideways and said, okay, we'll bring you on as an intern. and I was, yeah. And so from there, I did my internship. And then after my internship, he asked me if I wanted to stay on, and I absolutely did. And I was working under 2 trainers that, that had been doing it for a while. Yeah. And still learning, and all of a sudden, within a month, they both were leaving. One was going to be a police officer somewhere down the Cape. The other one just took a head coaching job over at a local ISL prep school.
And that's just opportunity for you.
Well, it was either, hey, we're going to either shut down or you need to take over and be and so it was kind of learn on the fly, a whole lot of research and trying stuff and YouTubes and books and seminars and classes and everything I needed to do. And I said, okay, let's do it. And, just kind of ran with it and made a bunch of mistakes on the way, but I was always honest. If I was working with an athlete and teaching him something and then I realized maybe that wasn't the right way or there was a better way, I was honest. I said, listen, we're going to try it a different way. I found a better way. Yep. And better than, instead of just sticking with it because that's what I taught you in the first place.
Right.
I told all these guys, hey, we're growing together here.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I was honest with them.
What age group primarily were you working with?
So that was, middle school, high school.
Okay.
It was really over there. And it was a very hockey-centric facility, a lot of ice hockey, because that's the owner, Peter, at the time, his interest. His kids played hockey.
Okay.
So that's why they did it. They owned the building, and they wanted a place for his son and his friends to train. Yeah. So there was a 70-foot artificial skating ramp and a mini rink, all artificial ice. And
fantastic.
Yeah. But me, who never played hockey, I was the football guy. So I started bringing in some like football players and people know, former college players. So then I started bringing in some more football players, and then some baseball players would come. And it's, now I work with athletes from every sport.
Okay.
And I realized that a lot of the training is the same. There's certain things that you tweak based off the sport and the season.
Right.
But a lot of it's the same. We're pushing, we're pulling, we're carrying, we're lunging.
Right.
It's a lot of that. The movements are a lot of the same. So after 4 years, I ended up buying it as a partner. So I had said 5, we did it in 4.
Yeah.
And then after that, COVID hit.
Okay.
And we had to shut down the gym for a while.
Yeah.
So I leased a pickup truck and put all, whatever equipment I could that would travel. Mm-hmm. And I started going to the houses of a lot of the athletes that I was training inside. So, I'm traveling everywhere. It started off locally. It was, Acton, Concord, right there. But then people were seeing I was the only one out there working.
Yeah.
So by the end of that first summer, I had put 30,000 miles on my truck.
Oh, I understand.
It was great because there was nobody on the roads.
Yeah.
I was going faster than I should, and
we probably flew by you a couple times.
Yeah. But I'd be up in Wilmington, down to Shrewsbury, up over to Manchester.
You could get anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere, anytime. And then, but what was great was I'd be out there in someone's yard, and the neighbors would see. And then they'd come over and say, hey, what's going on here?
Sure.
Got a lot of business that way. So there was one neighborhood in Concord where I ended up working with 6 or 7 different houses.
Yeah.
And I would just go down there. I'd be down there all day in one neighborhood.
And people would just come to you at that point?
So I'd either go from house and drive to another house, or some days some of those kids were friends. Yep. So, hey, let's just all do it together in one yard. And the yards were pretty big back then.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
It was great. Yeah. There was one point when they were like, okay, the lockdown's over. I'm like, oh, really?
Right.
This is going pretty well.
I got something going good.
I'm the only show in town.
Believe me, that's kind of how it was with real estate, where we were just teams of one because we weren't like multitasking, or we weren't multi-employee at each of the listings or whatever. So we'd just go to a listing and we'd basically have the house to ourselves for like 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
And we'd just plow through, do our thing. There was no questions asked. Like we got in there, it was staged, it was clean, the lights were on, like literally like all the protocols were in place where we just kind of just stuck to ourselves.
Yeah.
And then the transportation in between was like you were saying, it was a ghost town. Right?
It was great.
And so our efficiency during COVID was through the roof.
Yep.
And it was fantastic because there was a lot of virtual tours being ordered as a result of not having access to walkthroughs and stuff like that. And so it really actually benefited our business for the short term. And when lockdown ended, we're like kind of like,
right. Shoot. It was the same exact exact thing. Yeah. So went through the COVID thing, and we were able to open back up, and demographics changed in Acton a little bit. A lot of the athletes that were training were going off to these private schools that were still in school, right? They weren't remote anymore. They were living on campus. Yep. And when it's $60,000 a year, you work out at that facility that you're staying at.
You lost some of your audience.
So we lost some of the audience, and a lot of Indian and Asian families moved in, and they're not really training in a facility like that. They were doing other stuff. Yep. So we made the decision, and Pete was like, okay, I think we're just going to shut it down. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't ready to shut down what I do. Sure. I'd spent too much time and too much passion to just give up. And I didn't want to work for anybody else.
Was he approaching retirement age at that point?
Well, he wanted to retire.
Okay.
They have, other family businesses and they own the building. So they were able to get
options.
A lot more money coming in from companies that wanted that space.
Makes sense.
So I took out a loan. And paid off the bills and took all the equipment and was looking for space. And so we ended up, I looked at a few different places in the area. I live in Fitchburg. Okay. So I was looking for locations in here, in the area, and I found one that I loved the space, but the building wasn't up to par. Mm-hmm. Dealing with the redevelopment department in Fitchburg. There was Mary Jo was her name, a lady, Mary Jo Bernhardt. I don't want to mess up her name, but she was super helpful, and she had mentioned that she knew about this property, and that Dan did take care of his property. So I called, And or I don't know if I called or I sent an email, but I reached out, and that day they reached back and said, please come down. We want to, we'd love to talk to you. This is something we've been talking about, wanting to make this a sports centric, maybe type of location.
Your building that you're in now, was that what was in there?
It was a warehouse. It was storage.
Okay, so it was just cold storage.
Cold storage. A lot of their personal stuff. They own, their personal stuff.
So it wasn't even like ready for rent.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It was, the paint was chipping, the ceiling, everything was, was not ready, but I could see the vision.
Yeah.
So, I decided, all right, I'm going to do this. And then, they started pulling some stuff out, and once it was cleared out, then I could, paint the walls and the ceiling and order the, design the turf and how it was going to go with the equipment. And I had to talk the owner of the property into, I wanted a black ceiling, and he was of the age of blacks who has black ceilings, and how am I going to rent that after fantastic. If you don't stay?
Fantastic.
Right. And then so luckily his son David is a younger, with early 30s, with the vision, and so I came prepared with photos of gyms that had black ceilings,
and most of them do now.
And I showed him, and he looked at it, and he was like, "Okay, that looks good." And David was like, "Oh yeah, that looks great." Yeah. And then I was able to get the black ceilings. So we eventually, signed the lease in January and moved in, and I think our first class was like May 16th or May 18th of 2022. And it's been going good. You got ups and downs, and the pains and blood, sweat, and tears of being a business owner, and and everyone thinks you're a millionaire if you own a business, and I'm like, you have no idea. No.
Especially in the early stages where you're really getting something off the ground from nothing, or you're introducing a product that is previously unavailable in the area, right, because those are real new waters.
Absolutely.
Like even what we're doing, they're, to our knowledge, we might be wrong, and if we are, I'd love to be called out on that, but this is, to our knowledge, the only podcasting setup in our area that doesn't exist in someone's basement. Right. Yeah. Like an actual industry. And right? And with the popularity of podcasts and genuinely the importance of podcasts as far as like broadcast marketing, having honest conversations about the origins of things, about the future of things, exchange of ideas, disagree publicly and be okay with it. You know, like there's a lot of stuff going on there that we can really tap into as business owners. Yeah. And so you started off on a journey to provide a product to the area that was previously unknown to the area. Yeah. I mean,
there's some facilities in Leominster that work, and they do a great job, work with athletes. None of them have the space I have with the turf. I have the 30 yards of turf where we can actually do skills training as well. And my whole vision changed as we go. It was, I'm going to work with elite athletes. And then it was, you know what? I'm working with kids, which I enjoy more. And then I saw a need. I work with a lot of football players, and I truly believe that football players should wrestle. But I can't tell that to parents if I don't offer wrestling, because guess what? They go somewhere else. Got it. So I need to start a wrestling program. Yep. So now it's, get me a wrestling coach, and how do I get some wrestling mats, and building relationships.
Adapted.
You have to. Yep. You have to. Now adult boot camps wasn't on my to-do list. Right. But you know what? When you're first starting out and you need to pay some bills, what's going to pay the bills? Yeah.
How can I repurpose the existing space with the existing equipment?
Especially if my athletes are all in school. Yep. There's a lot of downtime during the school year that's sitting empty that I'm paying for. Up until 3 o'clock. Yeah. That I'm paying for. Yep. How do I fill that? Yep. And then how do I stay diverse as well with that? So, and then it's great because then there's some carryover, and some of these adults have children. Yep. And we can get them over. Yep. Or some of our athletes that come in, their parents are looking for something, and then we send them over to the boot camps.
That makes sense.
Which is great.
Yeah. So when we first started having conversations, I had asked you why you got into what you wanted to do or what you're doing, and you said something exceptionally profound to me, and that was that you You wanted to be the coach
that I wish I had.
That you wish you had when you were that age.
Yeah.
And that touched me in a very different way, because a lot of people that they get into business because they have a passion for the business, right? For you,
excuse me,
if I'm hearing that right,
yeah,
it's that you have a passion for the kids.
I do.
That are involved in the business.
Yeah.
Not because of the transaction, but because of the relationship.
Absolutely. Obviously you run a business, you need to pay bills.
Yep.
Right. And the goal is, excuse me, to, make money.
Yep.
But, I got a card last week, after the last day of the day camp from a 7-8-year-old client.
Yeah.
And it was just in his handwriting. Thank you. We drew a picture of a football, and maybe it was him running, and worth way more than any dollar amount I could have gotten that whole week, the whole year.
That was how you describe fulfillment right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, I always say, we build speed, we build conditioning, strength. I'm building confidence.
Yep.
We're building confidence.
Yep.
And anyone that does this and works with children or young athletes, with the right intentions, that's what we're building. Where, I have more parents that'll come up and say, oh my God, they are so much more confident. They're walking taller. Hey, they tried a vegetable last night because you told them to go home and eat their protein and vegetables. That is worth so much more.
Yeah.
I've also, maybe in that last thing we did, I had mentioned, different awards your athletes will get. And some of my athletes have gotten MVP awards and, full scholarships to Division I schools. The ones that mean the most are the ones where it's the most improved player.
Yeah. Right. It's not the topness of it all.
I would say those D1 athletes, they've probably always been a D1 athlete.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. It's what you're looking at is the delta between before and after.
Yeah.
And if you can take a child and encourage them to just simply not despair, not to be down on themselves, not to consider themselves a failure, and bring them into a, wow, I can actually do this.
Yep.
That difference in confidence
100%.
is going to set them on a track for life.
Yeah, that's
100%.
totally a life skill.
It's a life skill.
It's not
100%.
about winning awards.
No.
It's about being able to not just survive, but to thrive.
Yeah. So I had a new athlete just came in, young kid, maybe 10 years old. And the parents came in, and it just went through 2 years of like a mixed, a martial art studio.
Okay.
Local. And saying that it was not a great experience, so much like just yelling and putting them down and
not good.
And, so we always offer first session free.
Yeah.
So come and try it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Yep. I'm not going to make you pay for something and then walk away. That's too much paperwork.
Yep.
I don't want to do that.
Agreed.
Come see if you like it.
Yep.
Then if you like it, we can figure out what is it, a 2-day week? Is it 3 days? Is it just a package that you can come when you can make it? Because everyone's schedules are different. And at the end of it, the mom and dad said, we heard more good jobs in this 1 hour than we heard in 2 years at another place.
Sure.
And I always say, listen, I don't care if you mess up. If we're doing a cone drill or a ladder drill and you kick the ladder and trip or you don't do it right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We can do it again.
Yep.
I judge effort and attitude.
Yep.
If you give me everything you have and you have a good attitude about it, we can do whatever.
It's funny. Our kids. So we have 4 girls. And
God bless you. How many bathrooms do you have?
2. Ages 17 is the oldest and 7 is the youngest. So they're across the range. And none of them play sports or anything like that. But academics, they keep coming home and like, Daddy, I'm just trying to get an A. I'm like, I don't care about the A.
Yeah.
What I care about is that you care to show up.
Yeah.
I care that you
want that
you
A.
Try.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. If you get a C, but you tried for that C, then that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what success looks like.
Absolutely.
It's not about the A. No. It's about intentionally getting to the grade that you're at.
Yeah.
And if that grade is not enough for your own self, feel free to try harder.
Sure.
But what makes me swell with pride is when I know my kids have given their all into anything that they're doing. Mm-hmm. Instead of just half-assing it and just, moving on.
Yeah. So my son is 9 and he goes to St. Leo's in Leominster in 3rd grade this past year, first year letter grades. And he said right before school started, I want to get straight A's.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a lofty goal.
Yep.
And said, okay. And then first semester comes around and he's got a 98 average.
Right.
Second semester, 98.3. You know, he finished the year with a 98.3
awesome
GPA.
Wow.
At 9 years old in third grade.
Yep.
Now it's third grade, but
Sure.
he set a goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he achieved it.
And he's recognizing it.
And he's recognizing it.
Yep.
And if he came back home with a C, but he tried,
Yep.
that's okay, buddy.
Yep.
You know, sometimes we have to not fail, but we have to fall
Experience
struggle.
hardship.
to get back up.
Yeah.
You know, what
For
do we
sure.
do? I say all the time, what do we do when we fall? We get back up.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yep.
We all fall.
Yep.
And that's how we learn. We learn by falling and failing and messing up. And, you know, at like the beginning of when I was first started doing this stuff, you know, there's things that I thought were right and then realized they weren't.
Yeah.
And I admitted it, and we got back up and tried again and tried it differently. Sometimes 2 or 3 times. It wasn't, you know what, we're going to move on to something else. Or we're going to figure this out.
Yep.
Together. And
Modify.
But, you know, and that's just, and everything I do, I try to somehow carry it over to life lessons as well.
Yep.
You know, whether it's, you know, when they're leaving, hey, you know, let's go home. We have to finish the process that we did today. We just did damage to our bodies. We have to go home and we have to eat healthy and get some sleep. But you also have to make your bed and thank your parents on the way home, because they're the reason you're here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be here.
Yep.
You know, let them, you know, and then if it's, they tripped over something, it's okay. You know, and I'll reach over and see one of my college athletes that I worked with when they were in 7th grade that messed up. And I'll say, look, Sean, come here. Sean, do you remember how many jumps, you remember you couldn't jump rope? Oh my God, I couldn't jump rope. Now how many I can do 400 in 2 minutes, you know?
Yep.
How did he do that? He just kept trying,
Yep.
you know? And we have banners. You've been inside our facility.
Yep.
We have college banners all around. And those are the colleges our athletes have gone on to play at. And I always, when I'll point at one of them and I'll say, you see these flags, you see what sets these athletes apart from the other athletes is they asked to do more.
Yeah.
What else can I do?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, I did what you asked. What else can I do?
Yep.
And then I say, you need to do that in school. If you're having trouble in school, go ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Go ask to do more.
I think a lot of kids these days, wow, I just sound old. I think
I
that
just
one of
said
the challenges that the current in-school generation is experiencing is that it's embarrassing to ask for help. And I think that might have already been a problem long term. However, I think it's more pronounced now because there's a social shame in the asking for help.
Yeah.
But for very different reasons than existed before. I think that the reasons that existed before is that asking for help when you were, say, our age, you know, our age bracket growing up,
Sure.
right? It was more of a humiliation with the admission that you had to stay after school, right? Like it was like that whole thing, right? And now I think there's this whole idea of I don't need to ask for help because I can either do it with my friends by doing like, you know, just some private study groups or whatever, or I can find the answer online.
Right.
And then there's that additional layer of staying after school means that I'm an idiot. And so then of course there's the social influence aspect, which is a lot more readily available online. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure there for kids to not reach out and ask for help. Yeah. Our own kids experience that same thing, you know, and I'll see a letter grade start to deteriorate and I'll be like, hey, what's going on here? You know, well, you know, I didn't want to ask, and they won't even ask me for help. Yeah. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to keep, you know, I'm like, you're not a burden. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so I think that what we need to keep reminding our children that they are never a burden. Yeah. In any way, shape, or form. Absolutely. They are the future. Yeah. You know, in fact, they're the opposite of the burden. Right. Like they are the buoyancy. Yeah. Right.
And we thrive off of helping them.
We do.
Like that's beneficial to us.
It gives us purpose. Yeah. Right. Fulfillment. It gives us value. Absolutely. Something to wake up for in the morning. Yep. And that kind of carryover throughout parenthood, adulthood, is important because it rejuvenates that next generation to become what we hope to see in ourselves. Yeah.
I see that up at the facility as well. You know, athletes afraid to come over and ask me how to do something. So then I'll catch them, they're doing something wrong. Well, I was afraid to ask. Yep. Please don't be afraid to ask. Yep. But then there's the other one. A girl just asked me yesterday, can I use the bathroom? I'm like, we are not in school. You can go use the bathroom.
Anytime.
Anytime. That was my issue in school before. Like, you should never stop a child from using the bathroom.
Right.
I get that though. Some, they're afraid some kids are afraid to ask. And we need to normalize asking for help and not shaming anybody for asking for help.
I don't know why we still do that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think social media has ruined a lot of stuff. I think it's been great. Social media, it helps with business. It helps a lot.
Huge advantage. But there are so many disadvantages. I am going to wait as long as I possibly can to give my son a cell phone and let him on social media. How old is he?
He'll be 10 in November.
Yeah, okay.
But I've got friends who have children the same age that have had a phone since they were 6.
Yep.
And, my sister, who's 4 years older than me, and her daughters are now, 22 and 24, told me that she wait as long as you possibly can to give them a phone and let them on social media, because there's nothing good comes out of it at that age.
Our two oldest are 17 and 15.
Yeah.
They were 14 when they got their first phone.
Yeah. And
honestly, if I did it again, it would be 16.
It would be 16?
It would be 16.
Yeah.
I thought 14 was like long enough.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
No. And so it turned into their current ages plus screen time limitations and parent control apps and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it wasn't necessarily that they went off the deep end. Yeah. It's that they just kind of like went out into the ether. Yeah. Like they're
no longer present.
You'd lose them.
Well, you can't self-regulate at that age.
No, they
can't.
And adults can't
self-regulate. I find myself.
It's hard for
I'll get analytics on how long I was on Facebook, and I'm like, oh man, I need to stop that. And I get it. Some of it is business, but some of it's not.
For sure.
Right. For sure. It's a little of both.
Yeah.
But it is about regulation. Yeah. It's about doing things in moderation. And I think that as adults, we need to all look out for kids everywhere for that whole purpose. I'm actually in the process of advocating. So we go to a private Christian school where our kids go, and they have the ability to put into policy whatever they need to, right? But there's a school in Des Moines, Iowa, a public high school that is banning cell phones from high school completely.
So you can't bring them, or you have them lock them up when you get there?
Can't bring them.
Okay.
Can't bring them. So they are removing them from the classroom.
They got to put payphones in?
I don't know, right?
Remember that?
I do. I actually just, it's funny, talking about social media, I made a post not long ago, and it was, I remember being, I'd call collect from a payphone.
Yeah.
And then, who's the collect call for? Hey, it's me, I'm ready, pick me up.
Yeah.
And then, do you accept a collect call from, hey, it's me, pick me up? And my mom would be like, no. And then she'd come pick me up.
There was a whole
a whole way of getting around paying that 25 cents for a phone call.
It's Bob, we had a baby, it's a boy.
Yeah.
That commercial?
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, long and short of it though, is that I'm looking at that, and I talked to the principal and the superintendent, and I said, look, I brought this up before, I'm going to bring it up again. Especially so they don't allow phones until they reach high school. So that's what their current thing is. And I told the principal, I said, look, Jackie, I said, I think that it should just not be allowed, period. Yeah. And if you want to let them bring it in school, but it has to remain in the backpack, maybe there's a gray area there where we can kind of maybe agree on. But I think what ends up happening is even in between classes, boom, it comes out right away.
Sure.
Yep.
And so they're missing out on all that bonding and social interaction with each other.
Absolutely.
And that right there is the problem.
Yeah.
It's not because they're using it during class, because a teacher at that point can admonish them and have them put it away, right? Because that's on an individual basis. But the programming is during recess, during any downtime.
Their heads are buried in their phone.
Cafeteria or whatever. It's boom, phone comes out, and all of a sudden you're checking your grades on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like it's just that kind of behavior.
Yep.
And it's such a toxic behavior because they're missing out on those crucial elements of bonding with their peers, and that awkwardness that is necessary.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. They might not be. It's the mental health equivalent of jumping over fences and running through backyards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I actually just had a conversation with a couple of my middle school athletes yesterday, because in between sets they're going over to get their water, and they're on their phone. And I said, you guys texting each other? No. I said, unless you are texting your mom or dad,
put that away.
Put your phone away. Yep. I said, because if I see this again, I'm going to take the phones until it's time for you to leave.
Yep. Turn that thing off unless God's calling.
Put them behind my desk, and then because I'm with you for an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah, make it count.
You don't need that phone. Mm-hmm. You don't need it. And I'm sure there's studies, I could probably do a study saying the guys that are phones are away just doing their work are going to benefit and progress more than the guys that are every 2 minutes going to check their phone.
Because they're focused. They're in the zone.
Yeah.
They're not letting their brain click out of it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have my phone on me. It's not on the table.
Right.
And I did the same thing when I go out to eat with my wife, right?
Yep.
Date night, it stays in the car.
Yeah.
Stays in the car. She puts hers in her purse.
Yep.
It's on so that if the kids have to call,
Correct.
boom, it's there.
Yep.
But that's it.
Yep.
You know? And having that level of discipline as an adult needs to translate to helping our kids discipline themselves.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that we actually have to go to maybe a little bit more of an extreme
Yeah.
for that behavior because we do model for our kids
We do.
what they should be doing, quote unquote, right?
Right.
So you can tell a kid, don't do that, but then you go
We're
do
doing
it.
Yeah.
That's such hypocrisy. You know?
Absolutely. And they see that. They're watching more than listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of have a question on
Yeah,
that same
sure.
on that same topic. So, do you feel like your athletes genuinely want to be there, or do you think some of them, their parents want them to be there and want them to be the star?
If I was to put a percentage on it, I would say 95% want to be there.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
By
I
and
was
large.
just curious
By and
on
large.
that.
But there
type
are
of-
some where they walk in and they just look drained because they're
running ragged.
They're running ragged. They're doing too much.
and they're expected to perform.
They're there's been times where I've had athletes and all we did was stretch for an hour and just foam roll and move and not work because
That's what they needed.
it happened last year with a couple of wrestlers because wrestling they're cutting weight and I love the sport. I didn't wrestle, but I love the sport. I think it's great. I think it's a character builder, but what I don't like is 10-year-olds having to cut weight
That's not
to wrestle under
So
a
that
certain weight.
happens?
Oh
Yeah.
it happens.
Wow.
And
Is that for the class that they're in? Is
it's
that
for
what
the
it
weight
is?
class. So
Okay,
where they're going to go
right.
wrestle in a tournament and they have to be
Light, mid, or heavy.
90 pounds.
Yep.
And they're 95 and they haven't eaten in 2 days and they're wearing a sweatshirt in August.
Not okay.
And like,
That's
really? Yeah. And it's, and then I'm in a tough spot because, I'm not in a position where I can push business away.
Right.
I'm not there.
Right.
But I also,
So you try to help.
and my job is to protect these children.
Yeah.
And say, so I will not push them sometimes if I feel like they're being pushed too hard.
Yep.
Because sometimes that step back is what they really need.
Yep.
My job isn't to make them feel like they're going to throw up every time they're there because
Sure.
we have to work so hard that you're going to throw up and you're in pain tomorrow. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I ask someone first day and they come in the next day, are you sore? A little bit. Okay, that's good.
Yep.
You're working, we're working, but you're here. So you're not that sore.
Yeah.
Because you kill them, pardon the expression, but if you work them so hard that they're exhausted and they just can't move the next day, they don't want to come back.
No.
They don't. And obviously we want them to come back.
Yeah.
We want them to be consistent and come back.
Yep.
They also don't need to be there 7 days a week.
They need breaks.
They're 12. They need breaks. They need to go home and sleep and eat and then play with your friends and relax and go read a book. And then come back and we'll do some more work. But there's just some of these sports, hockey's one of them, they're on 3 teams. They've had 5 games on Saturday and Sunday. Just too much. It's just too much. I want 3 baseball teams. I want to get back to, you were on a baseball team in the summer. You were on a football team in the fall. You played basketball in the winter, and, you ran around with your friends in between.
Yep.
Maybe did some, and that might put me out of business,
No, I understand.
if we were back in 1985, 88, 90, whatever. So now it's that balance, you need to do the work, you need to do the skill work because everyone's doing it. And if you want to stay there and, stay ahead of the game, you have to do that stuff, but you also have to have a balance.
What's the goal of the multi-team approach in a given sport? What's the goal?
For the parent or the athlete?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just going to say.
Give me both ansers.
For the parent, it's a lot of it is
Exposure.
Yeah, exposure. Yeah, it's these some of these programs are if you don't come play for us, you're not going to be seen.
So it's casting a net.
Yeah. It's it's the goal of prep school, which is great for some, not for others, or college scholarships, which is 7% of athletes going off to play college sports.
Do parents come to you for advice on whether or not their child has the composition, as if you would, to achieve what they think is best for their child, or do they just bypass that?
Some do, some don't.
Okay.
Some come tell me what their child needs, and then some ask me what their child needs.
Okay.
And neither one is wrong. Some parents are very good at assessing what they need because they're on an elite soccer team, and they're just they're getting beat to the ball every time. They need to work on their speed a little bit, but or their skill level. But I just feel like sometimes they need to take a step back. I would rather kids practice than play games. You can touch. I forget the study, and I wish I was more prepared for this conversation about this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
That's fine. We can paraphrase.
Yeah. So they did a study with it was like the U.S. national team, and a lot of these guys are NHL players, and they in a game, I think they touched the puck a total of like 25 seconds in a whole game.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
Or
that doesn't give you much time.
You're not getting better.
No.
You're not getting
during
better.
the game.
Go practice.
Yep.
Go in your yard and shoot some pucks.
Yep.
Go, find some ice time. Go shoot a basketball.
Yep.
These games, AAU basketball is crazy right now. It's, these coaches are telling kids, you have to play in this league or you're never going to go to college and never get recognized. And that's not necessarily true. It's
a lot of pressure.
And, too many games, and it's costing parents. Hockey right now, if someone's really get their child in ice hockey and they're playing these 3 or 4 different elite teams and they're playing all year long, they're paying $25,000, $30,000 a year just in ice hockey between equipment. And then the equipment's crazy. Baseball bats are $500 now.
Yep.
Hockey sticks are $500 for a stick.
Yep.
It's crazy.
And I think the putting your kids in all of those elite sports. I mean, even my son, when he was 3rd grade, I remember all these kids had already played in all these leagues.
Yeah.
That it like makes the average kid, that's not really sporty.
Yeah.
Look like
they don't play anymore. It pushes them out of sports.
He totally was like, I am not playing.
It's min-maxed.
Yeah.
It's just
they just want to have fun at that age. And all these kids that have been in it since they were 5, it's sad.
And some of those sports like hockey, that's a sport you have to start when you're 5 to be able to play.
You miss the window.
You miss the window.
Yep.
Yeah.
You do. So it's, and there's benefits of playing sports, but I just think it's too much, and there's a lot of pressure on these kids, and they're exhausted.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies coming out in regards to travel sports and how that significantly impacts in a negative way a child's upbringing. Yeah. And of course the family dynamic too, because if you are absorbing yourself in a schedule that's centered around your child and sports versus family function, downtime, leisure, not to say that it can be a both and, right? Like it's possible to do both.
It is. And I know a lot of people that, they are involved in travel sports, but they travel as a family, and then and then they're hanging together, and they've got their group of friends, and it is a healthy environment. Yep. And that works for some people. Right. But some people who maybe can't afford to do that, but are trying to keep up with the Joneses, and now they're putting themselves in debt
for their child, working a second job
for their child's sports.
Yep.
That's not healthy.
Yep.
Now the child feels pressure. Now what happens when that child doesn't get a college scholarship?
They feel like a failure to their parents.
They feel like a failure. Yep. Do the parents feel like those kids are failures? Maybe. But those kids feel like they failed their parents.
And that's probably the more intrinsic problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that.
Oh yeah.
that's like a lot.
Yeah. And then there's burnout. Some of these kids that the problem is, a kid will excel at 8 years old in a sport. Puberty is the ultimate divider and equalizer. Yep. Once they hit puberty, it's different. That kid that was a foot taller than everyone when they were 9, they might be that same size if they were 13 when they're 19. Yep. And now they're not the best athlete. Correct. The best,
And that's just nature.
They're hitting home runs because they're just bigger than everyone.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the nature could be for or against somebody.
Absolutely.
Right. And there's no way of predicting that.
Nope.
So all you're doing is you're just pouring this effort in, which to a degree is good.
Yeah.
But beyond that diminishing point of return, the jury's still out as to whether or not it's going to play out for you.
Right. And so. I I do not think any parent should refinance their house and take out loans hoping their child gets a scholarship. It's not a smart idea. It's just not. It doesn't work out most of the time.
Yeah.
And the aspect of the child feeling like they failed they're afraid to quit the sport because their parents put so much into it.
Right.
Every year, and I put whatever my sport my son is in, I ask him if he wants to do it, and then I say, you're going to finish the season. And at the end of the year, we'll ask again if you want to play again.
Yeah.
And if he says yes or no, that's his answer.
It's up to him.
It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to live. My son does not need a college scholarship. I'd be happy if he went to a trade school and became a plumber or an electrician and had no debt at 19 years old.
My goodness, yes.
And a career.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm not a failure if my son doesn't go Division I and become a pro athlete. I'm not. I was a college athlete. I don't have to live through him.
Through your kids.
I don't have to. And I see that a lot.
Yep.
Yeah,
I see parents trying to live through their children.
I wonder what the stats are on that as to how many kids got involved in these because mom and dad, pushed them to versus they had an intrinsic
that's
desire.
why I asked, because I think that's I know a lot of people personally that push their kids really hard into sports.
Yeah.
And you're right. In the end, it didn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And if you get an injury, tons of things can happen.
Yeah.
So what's your philosophy when they come through the door? Like, what do you teach them morally? Like, at the end of the day, do you talk about those sorts of things with them?
Yeah. What do you want to do? I ask them, what do you want? What's your
what
goal?
do you want?
What's
not
your
your
goal?
parents.
Do you have aspirations of playing at the next level? And most of them say yes.
Yep.
Is the reason because someone else wants them to, or do they want to?
Sure.
And sometimes I don't necessarily get into that. I'm not trying to pit athletes against their parents.
Right.
No, not at all.
So it's a fine line of conversation.
Of course.
But I always say, what do you want? What's your goals?
Yeah.
And that's important because their parents might have never asked them that.
Yeah. Some of them may have not.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, not all parents ask that question.
What bothers me is when I have a 10-year-old come in and I say, what sport do you play? Soccer. What else do you play? Nothing. Go play multiple sports. Athlete. It used to be you played 3 or 4 sports. You played a sport a season. Now the season's like youth football starts Monday. It's July 22nd. That is way too early. When I played youth football, we didn't start till the end of August.
Yeah.
Right. Jamboree.
Yeah. You had a week of practice and then you had a jamboree, and it was the end of August, right before school started.
Yep.
Now they don't even have their summers.
No, you lose your summer. Yeah.
And then there's sport overlap. They're going from hockey or baseball right into football. Like, give them some time.
Yep.
Yeah. Now they're playing baseball in the fall, right?
They're playing baseball. Every sport is all year long now.
What's the end goal on that though? Really, like it's this whole like
the end goal is I don't want little Timmy's parents don't want little Tommy
to exceed them,
to exceed Timmy,
and so this
because
is constant,
Tommy's playing an extra season.
But this constant laddering up, there's no. Where's the end?
The end is burnout and a kid saying, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like it."
Like 7%.
or injury, because hockey was the worst for 10 years ago when I started doing this. Hockey was where they were just on the ice 6 days a week, skating 2-3 times a day, 5 games on the over the weekend. So a lot of injuries with those first athletes I started working with that were mostly hockey players. A lot of groin injuries because they were always pushing. They were never pulling. So they're overusing some muscles, not using enough.
Yep.
By playing an ice sport, then a field sport, then, whatever else it is, then go play with your friends. Now you're going to get more well-rounded athletes.
Sure.
I think it was Nick Saban said that he doesn't recruit single sport athletes. He wants you to be able to play multiple sports and maybe not be the best at one of them.
Okay.
If I'm a college coach and I'm going to recruit a football player, but he also plays basketball, but he's not the star. I like that. I want to see if he can go and sit on that bench
and suck
or be supportive. Not be the star and still be a good teammate and still be supportive. Yeah. Because
there's determination in that.
There is
patience.
And listen, you go into college, you're not going to be the best player on that team anymore.
And that's
you're at the bottom of that. Can you be a role player until you're the star?
Yep.
And that's a life lesson. For sure.
That is a very big life lesson. That's good.
You wait your turn.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. And that,
like, no one teaches the kids that these days.
No.
Take your turn. And that's a whole nother podcast of kids transferring 4 times to 4 different colleges or 5 different colleges or even high schools because
to get the spot.
They're not the spot. They're not getting the playing time. They have to sit behind somebody. They're not the star. Like, sometimes you got to wait. Sometimes you have to learn. There's a guy in front of you that has been doing it, and it's I see the parents doing it. We're going to transfer out. We don't like the coach. We're going to do this, and it's like, how about letting your child experience some failure? Mm-hmm. If you're just constantly bailing because it didn't work out, there's no fight. And if we want this stuff that we're learning in sports to carry over in life, you have to suck.
Seriously.
You have to fail and realize it's going to be okay. And then what can I do so I don't fail again?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the hardest comments I had ever heard was from a relative of my wife. And he was joining the Army. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I said, what's up? What are you hoping to do? He goes, I don't care. He goes, all I know is that wherever I go, I'm going to be better than everybody else. And I looked at him like, good luck. And that's where the conversation ended. Yeah. Because you can't talk with that, No. And to have that kind of level of arrogance, and that's straight up what it is just, you might succeed. Yeah. You might darn well succeed. And I kind of hope that you don't, right? Because that's the better learner than the success.
100%.
And so to move a child around so that they can have that automatic success is just setting them up for long-term failure, because that's not how it works in the real world.
It's not at all.
It's not even close.
It's not even close.
Not even close.
And if you find yourself at the top of somewhere that you go, that's actually a disservice to you.
Absolutely.
Because that means that you're bringing up the average of everybody. Right. And you don't have any role models at that point. You have nothing to strive for. You've already hit the top.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you need a new room.
You need to change the room.
Change the room.
That's it. And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, is because I was just honestly, quite frankly, tired of not having a changing environment, right? And to just live in your own echo chamber, you're not doing anybody any good. Right. You're just regurgitating the same thing over and over again, which is why I enjoy I've never sat down with somebody who's involved in fitness, and it's nice to just hear these things from your mouth, because it gives me hope, because there are, there's that, there's a lot of, what's the word that I'm looking for? When something's pigeonholed, I'm blanking here. There's stereotypes. Thank you.
Stereotypes,
Wow,
yeah.
That did not come easy. We can edit that one out, right? Okay.
No, don't edit out. Not everything comes easy.
Exactly.
Right. Be your authentic self.
You know what? Keep that in there.
Be your authentic self.
That time where just there's a lot of stereotypes that exist in the fitness realm. Yeah. Right. And I think that a lot of them are perpetuated very easily by social media, TV, right? Yeah. And it's really doing a disservice.
It is.
Yesterday,
it's been like that for years, though.
Yesterday, I was sitting down with 2 realtors, and one of them had a real difficult time hearing what I was saying on my end of the table. She was talking about how realtors have this stereotype that they just make a lot of money and they don't do a lot of work, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, well, look what has been putting out there for the past 10 years on social media. Right. It's the success. Or
the reality shows. And
we delved into that too, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all of this, if you're going to paint the picture of all of these positives, but you're not going to show also the negatives and the hard work that went into it, you're going to end up on the receiving end of some maybe injustice. Yep. That's going to happen. So putting that onto your business, how are you embracing the negatives? How are you embracing and showcasing, look, these are the efforts that we went through. Yeah, we didn't succeed, but we did this instead. Yeah. Type of thing.
So I always say, the only person you're competing with at my facility is yourself. Yep. And, I do a lot of timing stuff. I'll have timing gates. We're going to do our 10-yard sprint. Yeah. And there'll be 10 athletes, and they're all running different 10-yard sprints. And Tommy might be faster than Timmy, right? Timmy needs to not be down about Tommy's beating a time. Timmy needs to worry about
him
beating his own time, right?
Yep.
And working
personal
hard. Personal best.
Yep.
And even if they don't get their personal best, then I'm saying, listen, we just did 10 sprints. You're probably not going to beat your best time right now. But if you're giving everything you have, then you're still getting the work we need.
Yep.
But it keeps them honest with the timer, right?
Sure.
I can tell if someone's dogging it or not.
Yep.
Right. Now, if it's off by 0.3 of a second, it's a little lower. They're still giving everything they have.
Yep.
They just might not have recovered long enough.
Sure.
There's factors, and I'll say that we didn't get it this time, but there's reasons why. One might be we're just not strong enough, or two, we just might be tired. We didn't recover long enough, or three, your technique was wrong, and we're going to fix that. Yep. There's reasons why. Sometimes the reason is effort. Other times there's multiple factors. He's faster because his legs are longer. Yeah. He has a longer stride. You can't do anything about that. If I could make someone taller, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah, right. If I could clone an employee.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, you can't just hang on the bar to get taller?
But we embrace failure. We emphasize hard work. My motto in the NGE slogan from get-go was willing to work for what others dream about.
Yeah.
And if you can have dreams all you want, but if there's no action, they're just dreams. They're wishes. Yep. And even if we work hard and don't get there, embrace that hard work because that's going to carry over in life. No losses, just lessons. All the cliches, but they're true.
For sure.
Like if it was hard, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Yep. And if you work hard at something, the reward is much greater. Than if it came easy.
Right. The fulfillment that you receive at the end.
Yeah. And if we hit that goal, we set this goal because we set a daily goal, a weekly goal. What's your monthly goal? Okay. What's your life goal? Okay. And if every day we try to,
track it.
Let's get a goal.
Yep.
And it's not even written down tracking. It's like talking at the beginning. Hey, what are we going to do today? Okay. What was your fastest time? Okay. It was a 1.68 10-yard sprint. Let's get a 1.67. Let's get that.
Yeah. Just shave it off.
And then the look on their face when they get that is amazing. And that
priceless.
It's absolutely priceless. And that's, I get that with the 6-year-old, and I get that with the 22-year-old college student. That's at that different level. Little goals that we set can, if you set yourself a couple small daily goals and you achieve those, you are ready for the next one.
Yep.
The next day.
Yep.
But if we're just worried about that long-term goal, you get lost.
You do.
On the way.
You do, because you feel like you're never going to get to it.
Yeah.
It's just agony at that point. And not many people have the patience that it takes to get to that long goal without having those incremental ones.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's let's try this tomorrow. Because their head gets involved, and then it's a head game. Yeah. And they just can't do it. And we try, and I say, let's take a step back. Sometimes it's, let's go get a sip of water, do something different and come back to it and get out of our own head.
All of a sudden it just pulls the plug.
Yeah. Well, listen, our brain is our biggest enemy. It's our greatest asset, but it's our biggest enemy.
Oh God, yeah.
And if we can get them to get past that mental part of it,
without a doubt,
that's a game changer.
Without a doubt.
But I like how you do the incremental goals too.
Yeah.
Because just because you didn't reach your monthly goal, look at what you did every day. Yeah. Look at all the progress you made. Yeah. That's huge in life. Again,
it is proof of growth.
And enjoy the process.
Everything has to be life. Sports doesn't last forever. Even at the highest level. No. Tom Brady, he's 45 years old when he finally retired. Yeah. He still has a whole life ahead of him. Yep. Sports are over. Yep. He's less 0.1% of the population gets there. Most athletes' career ends at high school, at the end of high school. All right. They don't go on to 7% go on to play college sports.
Teach those life lessons
now
while they're developing through high school, so that they can take something away with them.
Even before that, even when they're 10 years old,
through high school,
through high school. Yep. Let's figure out. When they say, I want to go play college sport. I want to be a college athlete. Well, what do you want to study? And I don't know. Okay. That's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's find, now we're picking colleges, right? Yeah. don't pick a college just because of the sport.
Yeah.
Or a coach, because that coach has no, athletes. Now that the portal's there, it's a different story. But before the transfer portal, like you had to like sit out a year if you want to transfer, and it was harder to transfer.
What's the portal? What does that
mean? So the transfer portal happened because of COVID. They allow athletes to basically leave a school, hop into a pool of athletes, and then other schools can pluck from them and take them and give them scholarships. So which is actually taking away scholarships from high school athletes coming out.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but I forget where I was going there. So the portal.
You're talking about coach selection and college selection.
Oh yeah. So thank you. One of my things I always tell athletes that are starting the college process is I call it the broken leg test, and I didn't coin that. I got that from an author. And walk on campus, meet your coaches, see the school, but before you leave, say, if I broke my leg and couldn't play that sport, would I still want to be here? If the answer is no, it's not your school.
Yeah. Yeah. If the only thing keeping you there is myopic.
Or if you broke your leg and you couldn't play sports anymore, would you still want to go to college? Yeah. If the answer is no, go play a club sport. Yep. Go play in a men's league or whatever, and then go get a trade and start a career.
Amen.
Because why start your life $100,000 in debt?
Oh my goodness, yes.
To go play Division III.
Yep.
Whatever, whatever sport. I don't want to offend anybody, but
sure.
Why?
I get it. Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No, that's a healthy outlook. That's a really healthy outlook to encourage. And I think that we need to have more of those kinds of conversations across the board. I follow a very, he's number 3 on iTunes now, but a very popular talk show, a podcast rather, John Deloney. He's part of the David Ramsey Network. Yep. And he has really good friends that run a business called Mind Pump. And Mind Pump is a personal trainer education group. Essentially, they advise personal trainers on how to basically behave with their athletes.
Okay.
And from the sound of it, you and they would have a really good conversation.
I'm gonna have to look in. I want to look into it and listen to their stuff. Yeah.
Mind Pump. And so they have a very large podcast, and it's mostly mental health fitness centric. Right, like essentially the business of fitness as it pertains to the whole body.
Sure.
Right, and how to think about things in a more constructive manner, so that we're not working out because we hate ourselves. We're working out because we love ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it was just I was actually just listening to one of the podcasts today for John, and he keeps plugging them because he's such a large advocate for how they treat the whole person.
Sure.
And it sounds to me like this is exactly the embodiment that you have.
And not on purpose, by accident, I guess. It's just how it is. My first degree was in psychology. Yeah. And my second degree was in exercise science.
Right.
But if I use my psychology degree way more, and my psychology, I say degree, but experience, way more than my exercise science with what I do.
For sure.
If I have 100 athletes, there's 100 reasons why they're there. 100 motivations, what's going to push them, some need a kick in the butt, some need a pat on the back, some need both.
And you have
depending on the day.
You have to play that range.
You have to play that range and treat every one of them differently.
Yep.
And find out what's going to motivate them. Is it being a college athlete? Is it just beating that short-term goal?
Yeah.
Is it talking about that long-term goal?
Right.
They all think differently.
Yeah. And how well do they respond to certain factors?
Yeah. Absolutely. Can I yell and not yell? And I never yell in an angry way.
Can I strongly encourage?
Can I strongly encourage? Come on, let's go. Or do I have to walk over and say, hey
buddy,
you okay? Let's what are we going to do right now?
Sure.
Is it a quiet talk and just walking with them?
Right.
Or is it a yelling motivational, let's go, pump up, rah rah.
For sure. I totally get that.
And sometimes it's different for the same athlete. Every day is different.
Yeah.
Coming in.
Especially with that age group.
Because you don't know what's going on at home.
No idea.
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Home and school both.
Yeah. They're dealing, and then on top of that, with social media now, they're getting hit every which way. And it's, you can tell someone walk in and you can tell they're a little, and it's like, hey, everything okay? And usually, usually they won't tell you, straight out.
Sure.
Sometimes they will. And then it's like, okay, if they're telling you, you need to sit and listen.
Yeah.
If they're willing to open up.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what's awesome is like you're just being their advocate no matter what. Yeah. You know what I mean? They can come to you from stuff at home and stuff at school, and like you're that guy.
And you cannot possibly diminish or dismiss what it is that they're saying.
Absolutely not.
If you attempt to downplay what they're going through for feelings, you're only going to shut them up.
Absolutely.
And they're not going to come to you openly anymore.
And then it's, are they looking for advice or just someone to listen?
Yeah, you have to ask that question.
And you have to figure that out too.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes preface say, listen, I'm not telling you what to do, but if I can make a suggestion, maybe try this. Or, have you thought of this?
If I were in your shoes,
hey, you know what? I can relate. This happened to me.
Yeah, like I felt like that before.
When I was younger and I dealt with the same thing. Yep. I had a mom come in today who was telling me some stuff that was going on at home.
Yep.
And stuff that I dealt with when I was a kid.
Sure.
And
so the receiving end.
Yeah, but I said, I asked if the athlete knew, and she said, oh yeah. I said, is it something that I should talk to them about or maybe bring up? And she said, absolutely. I said, I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah.
Today's the first day back.
Yep.
But the next time I'm going to just maybe say, hey, how's things going? I had maybe a conversation with mom, and I understand things are, tough at home right now, and just want you to know that I dealt with that when I was a kid, and if you need to talk, I'm here.
Yep.
And leave it at that.
That's it.
Yeah, no judgment.
Just open the door. Let them walk through it.
Yes.
Don't pull them through.
But let them know that the door is there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
awesome. I'd like to transition hard because just so that we can get to the topic. In the spirit of this podcast, so what's next? What's coming up the pike for Jim and NGE?
So ending our obviously summer's ending, where a lot of our football guys are going back. Now we're transitioning, trying to really get in our athletes that are going to be competing in the winter, because fall is their preseason. So those winter sport athletes, trying to go out and find those athletes and get them ready for their winter season as well. And then going around and going to the games of my athletes that have been working there.
Yeah, cheer them on.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got to show up.
Yeah.
And let them know that someone cares.
Yeah.
Someone, you showing up is big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You show up to a game. I go out to New York. One of my college guys that I've been working with for since he was in 7th, 8th grade, plays at Division I football out in New York. The last 2 years I go out to a game there, and another one of my guys goes to school at Butler University out in Indianapolis. Heading back out there in the fall to go visit there, and I joke around. I say I spend more money going out to their games than they ever spent coming in to train with me.
Right.
But it's not about the money.
Yeah,
it's not, because I've watched these kids grow up.
Yeah, it's about seeing the effort.
Yeah, and then as far as other stuff, where I've got some meetings coming up where we're gonna looking to start a nonprofit where we can offer some training and maybe some winter league stuff at a discounted price with people bringing in and giving donations and corporate write-offs and things like that.
That's awesome.
So that we can, and offering like training scholarships for maybe some athletes that can't afford to train. I know the area we're in is different than the area I was in Acton. It's just different. It is what it is. There's a lot of athletes that could benefit from what we do, but maybe it's not in the budget. So I want to be able to help those athletes.
Yep.
So we're working on getting the paperwork done with that,
sure,
and then see where that takes us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. I'm really happy to have sat with you and had a chat. I love your dynamic. I love how you're approaching what it is that you do. The courage that it took to do that. I mean, that's notwithstanding. I mean, you went from physical laborer to basically like a reflection of your former self.
Yeah.
And you just kind of went for Jim round 2.
I did. Reinvented myself.
Yeah.
And it's very fulfilling. I go home every day and I'm satisfied and happy with the work that's being done.
That's probably the most important personal thing for you going on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we got this little deck here.
Okay.
And they're question cards. We're just going to draw one.
Okay.
And you can draw from the top, you can draw from the center, doesn't matter what. But it's a question card that I'd like you to read aloud and answer the question for.
Okay. Let's see here. Which moment would you most like to relive? In the past year, in retrospect, which moment would you most like to relive? Huh. That's a good question. In the past year.
In the past year. We can extend it to the past 2. I'll be generous.
I would say the very first training session when we opened.
Okay.
Knowing what I know now.
Okay. All right.
And how we evolved. And,
Sure.
And wishing that I could have possibly, maybe had that vision then.
I get it.
Yeah.
Believe me, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's, if I knew that what we were going to be and where I want to go then, because it's changed. It's like
experience is the biggest educator.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So so long as you're open to that information, right? And
I'm open.
And I know that you are.
Yeah.
Everything that you're saying says you're a life learner.
Yep.
You're not.
Yeah. And I I've made more mistakes than I'd love to admit.
Than right choices.
But that's what shaped who I am.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's exactly what shapes who you are.
And so I tell that to my athletes.
Yeah.
I've made those mistakes. I've done it. I don't, especially the high school kids graduating, going on to college. Like I can really talk to those guys. I can let them know.
Yeah.
Everything wasn't rosy
No.
at every point in my life. And don't make some of the mistakes I made or some of the mistakes that teammates of mine have made or things like that. And it's the different age groups. You relate to them a little differently, right? It's you're a father figure or an uncle. Then you're kind of like a big brother, to the older ones, and then you can start talking to them. You got a college athlete going off to a concert and saying, listen, don't be an idiot. I know what you're going to do. I know,
I've been there.
Yeah, I've been there. I know what you're going to do. I'm not stupid.
Help steer them.
I'm not stupid. Yeah. I'm not your parent, but as someone that's been there, this is what you need to look out for.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're also vested in their best interest.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes a long way, and that's obviously not what people are paying you for, right?
Right.
What people are paying you for is to help their kid succeed, quote unquote, right? Like they got this idea, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's idea is different, like we've been over. But it's all those intangibles, those added values that you bring to the table that sets you apart in what it is that you do. So
I try, but I also have a lot of I'll have parents, and they'll be like, "Hey, can you talk to them?" They're not listening to me, and I use the same quote a lot, and I say, listen, you've been telling them to wipe their ass their whole life.
Yeah.
They're done listening.
Yeah.
I will tell them exactly what you tell them, and they're going to come to you and say, guess what coach said?
Yes.
I'm going to do this because coach said this.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And you're going to say, I've been telling you that for years.
Yep.
And they're still not going to hear it.
Nope.
So don't take offense to it.
Nope.
Use me as a conduit.
Correct.
Yep.
Tell me.
Correct.
If they're having issues in school, I will talk to them, because I will say,
can't tell you
they
how
love
many
coming
times.
here, but they're slacking on their grades. Well, I will sit and tell them, listen, if you don't bring your grades up, I'm not going to let you come back.
Oof.
I will say that. You can't come here. If you fail, if you're going to fail a grade, you are not allowed here. I will not let you here. And that hurts me financially.
For sure. But it sets a bar.
It sets a bar. We did an all-star team 2 years ago, went to Texas for the U.S. Army Bowl. And I set a grades. I said, listen, you need to bring your report card, or you're not going to be on this team.
Wow.
And 12 athletes from those 3 teams total made honor roll for the first time ever in their life.
Wow.
Super
That
cool.
says a lot about the respect that they have for you.
It's because they had a goal. They had a goal carved in stone.
Yeah. And the place you love is not going to let you back if you don't try hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That puts some pressure, but it's a good pressure.
Good pressure.
It's a good pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Jim, I'm really happy to know you.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to know you, and I'm glad that you came in, and I appreciate
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys having me here. I love what you do. I think we've, built a great relationship.
Absolutely,
You know, you guys were part of our Lyman League.
Yep.
And we plan on doing that again.
I hope so.
And oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
But it's been great. I've, a pleasure. I appreciate you guys offering me the opportunity to come here. It's been great.
Quite welcome.
Awesome.
All right.